believe it, guys. We are gonna make restaurant-style Chinese hot and sour soup in 10 minutes flat. First thing we need to do is get our vegetables prepped. So I'm just gonna go straight in with my carrot here. If you've got one of these julienne vegetable peelers, they are so great because you can just strip away the little fine shards of the carrot. Now, if you don't have one of these, don't worry, just buy shredded carrot already pre-done from your supermarket. It's pretty easy to find those these days. Okay, and to that we want to add a mixture of mushrooms. Now, I've got some enoki mushrooms here, which I love for this soup because they turn into nice little silky tendrils all the way through our beautiful soup. And then just take your shiitake mushroom, and the stem itself is a little bit tough. So just slice through that mushroom and then remove the stem and then just keep on slicing. Okay, so they go into our pot as well. And then I've got some firm tofu here and I'm just gonna slice that through the middle. And I want some fine slices of that. And then we want some bamboo shoots and some cooked chicken. Now, I'm just using some rotisserie chicken that I've shredded up, but leftover roast chicken would be good as well. Or you could keep this meat-free and leave the chicken out. Okay, and now for our chicken stock. So you know what? I'm just using a store-bought stock today because it's the middle of the week and I'm in a bit of a hurry. If you've got homemade stock, of course, go ahead and use that. And then we want to get this mixture gently bubbling away on our stove top. I love this soup. So most kids, when they're at a Chinese restaurant, are ordering, you know, the chicken and sweet corn soup. I was always the hot and sour kid. Ordering the hot and sour soup was my favorite. And now time to add the seasonings. So I've got some light soy sauce here, which is just a regular Chinese soy sauce. And then I've got some dark soy sauce here for some color, some white vinegar. Now, if you've got some Chinese black vinegar at home, go ahead and use that. That would be the traditional vinegar to use here, but white vinegar is much easier to find, so you can use that one. And some pepper. So the main flavors in this soup are sour, salty, and then a really good hit of pepper. So I'm gonna put quite a bit of pepper in there. And that is the hard part done, folks. We are just now waiting for this to bubble away, all those flavors to infuse and become nice and tasty. Oh, I just love the color of this soup. It's like autumn leaves, just lovely. Okay, so those mushrooms have softened now. It's only been a couple of minutes and I'm gonna add in some corn flour mixed with a little bit of water because of course this style of soup is quite thick. So I'm gonna add this in. And just like that, our soup is turning beautifully thick and glossy. I just want to let that bubble away a few more minutes to thicken up a little bit. And now let's try this out and see. That's good. I'm loving those really nice sour flavors, but you know what? I think I'm going to add a little bit more vinegar. And this is where your own personal taste will come into it. Add in some more vinegar. A little bit of salt if you think it needs it, because that of course depends on your chicken stock, how salty that was to start with. And because I like things spicy, I'm gonna add in a little bit more black pepper. Such a simple soup, but so ultra comforting. All that's left now is to serve up and just sprinkle with a little bit of spring onion. So this is one of the questions you guys ask me all the time. How do you keep your beef really soft and tender when you're stir frying it? Well, I've got the answer just for you. So first off, let's talk about the beef. So I like to start off with a tender cut of beef because starting off tender means you're more likely to get a more tender result. So I like to stick to ribeye or Scotch fillet, sirloin, strip loin, even rump actually is pretty good as well. So they're all the ones you're looking for. I'm using strip loin today. And what you want to do is check out the grain of the beef. So I'm talking about the way that the sort of muscles in the beef run. Now in this piece you can see when I slice through here that the grain is running this way. So we want to cut in the opposite direction. This is what's going to help the beef stay nice and tender. The way you cut it is really important. Now I'm also cutting it on the diagonal because I like to get sort of wider pieces of beef out of my steak, and I want to keep it really thin. So this is about the thickness that you want. Okay, slicing is tip number 1. Tip number 2 are some ingredients that we're going to put in our marinade. First off, quite conventional, we're going to add a little bit of soy sauce and then some Chinese cooking wine. So this is a rice wine, and you can find it in Asian grocers and a lot of major supermarkets these days. I just want a dash of that. I love the flavor of this in stir fries. If you'd like to keep it alcohol-free, just leave it out. And then here come the important bits and pieces that are gonna make all the difference. So, baking soda, I'm gonna add that. That is gonna help to tenderize the beef. And then cornstarch. So cornstarch is gonna kind of put a bit of a protective layer around the beef and give it that kind of velvety, soft texture on the outside. Now you just wanna give that a whisk. Okay, now the beef goes in. And the only way to do this, I think, is with your hands, because you really want to make sure that each little piece of beef has its share of that marinade. So get right in there, give it a good mix. Now this doesn't need very long. I'm just gonna set it aside while I make my stir fry sauce and do my veggies. Really simple black pepper sauce. I'm gonna start with some oyster sauce, some light soy sauce. So light soy sauce is just the regular Chinese soy sauce. It's called light soy sauce just to differentiate it from dark soy sauce, which we'll get to in a minute. So soy sauce goes in, and then this is our dark soy sauce. I mainly use this for color. And now I want a little bit of vinegar, some sugar to kind of cut through the saltiness of the sauce, and a decent amount of ground black pepper. Okay, just mix that through. Now for our vegetables, I'm gonna keep it really simple. Just go with some capsicum. Just wanna cut around this so I'm avoiding the seeds and as much of that white part inside as possible. Now I also want some spring onion. Okay, just slice those. So now we're ready to stir fry. So a wok obviously is what you would traditionally use, but I know a lot of you email me or message me to say, well, you know, I don't have a gas stove, I don't have a seasoned wok, you know, what's the best thing to use? So in my opinion, if you've got a flat electric surface, then you really want to be going with a really wide pan. So the whole idea is to get as much hot surface area as possible, and you don't want the bits and pieces to kind of stew. That's what'll happen if your pan isn't big enough. So really big pan, and get it really hot, add some oil. So in we go with our garlic. You'll notice it's quite roughly chopped because I don't want it to burn. Straight away in with our onion as well. And then literally like 30 seconds later, I'm pushing the vegetables out to the side, and I'm gonna add in my beef. So you wanna put the beef in and try to spread it out as quickly as possible in the pan. And this is important because you want to get that beef spread out and searing in the pan rather than being all clumped up and stewing and steaming. Now don't fiddle with it too much. I just want to let that beef caramelize and get a really beautiful, lovely color on it. Okay, time to toss everything together, and look at the color we're starting to get on that beef. Ah, perfect. Now just before that beef is cooked, now I'm going to add in my capsicum. That'll give it a chance to soften up a little bit before the beef is cooked through. So the beef is just about cooked. The capsicum's got a little bit of color on it. Now I'm going to add my sauce. Okay, so this literally just needs to be tossed together until everything is well coated. So now I'm going to add in my spring onion. Ah, look at that beef. It's so glossy. Now all that's left to do is serve it up. Okay, so let's see how we've gone with our beef. So soft and tender, you guys will not believe it. Just 2 little ingredients makes all the difference to that beef. Amazing. You'll never have dry beef stir fry at home ever again. Stir-fried noodles jam-packed with so many good things. Roasted pork, prawns, big chunky chunks of egg. This is my version of Singapore noodles. All right, let's get one thing straight before we start cooking, and that is you probably won't find these Singapore noodles in Singapore. In fact, in all the times I've been to Singapore, I've never once had them in Singapore, but you do find them in Australia and in America, mainly in Chinese restaurants. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they're not amazing noodles. They're just maybe incorrectly named. Anyway, whatever you want to call them, these noodles are epic and they're a great noodle dish to make for a crowd. I'm going to give you all my tips on how we can do that and still get the very best noodle stir fry. All right, so first up, let's make our barbecue pork. Now, if you live near a Chinatown in your city and you have access to some really good Chinese roast pork, please go ahead and grab that really good shortcut. But we're going to make a very quick version here. I've got some pork belly. And the first thing I want to do is take the skin off. The skin just will not get crispy in the amount of time that we've got. Now, I prefer pork belly or pork shoulder for making barbecue pork. A lot of recipes call for pork fillet or pork tenderloin. To be honest, it dries out in the oven and I just don't find it as juicy as your pork or shoulder cuts. So I'm going to cut this into 2 pieces, and then I've got some Chinese char siu barbecue sauce here that you can find in the Asian section of a lot of supermarkets these days. And that goes in along with a little bit of soy sauce. Now, I do have the full-on homemade version of this recipe for char siu pork on my YouTube channel. So if you want to make the full-on version, which is even tastier, head there and you can watch it. This one will do in a pinch. Okay, get those pieces out to a tray lined with some baking paper. Now pop that pork into a hot oven about 20 minutes or until it's cooked through and you can see some little charriness happening on the edges. So while the pork is cooking, that gives us plenty of time to get the rest of our stir fry ingredients ready. So first up, I've got some rice vermicelli noodles here. Now, the noodle cooking part is super important for this, I've got to say. And a lot of you guys write in to tell me that your noodle dishes are a disaster because the noodles end up really soggy in the wok. Ugh, no one wants that. So let's go through it. You've got your dried vermicelli noodles here. Pour over some hot water. It's not boiling, it's steaming. And we're not boiling it in some water on the stove, we're just soaking them. Now just agitate those noodles a little bit as they're soaking and just leave them 2-3 minutes. Keep checking every minute or so, and just as soon as they're tender, you want to get them out. So in the meantime, I'm going to chop some vegetables, and I'm going with a red capsicum for this one. And some sugar snap peas as well. Now you could leave these whole. I quite like to slice them up because you're generally going to be eating this with some chopsticks. I want everything to be like a little bite-sized piece. Now let's check our noodles, and literally in that short time it took me to chop those vegetables, these are done. Just drain them really well, put them into a bowl. And they should be cooked and tender, but they should in no way be sticky and soggy at this point. Now for the eggs, I want a lot of like chunky bits of egg in my noodles, so I'm going to do 4 eggs for this one. Now we're going to make the egg omelette first, and to do that I want a hot pan, some oil. I'm doing this in a wok, which is a little trickier, so a non-stick frying pan is good as well if you're uncomfortable with doing this in a wok. And now, the trick to doing this is to spread the egg out using your spatula as it goes. I need to do a bit of swirling as well. What I'm trying to do is even out that raw egg so I don't have big pools of eggs sitting anywhere. Now I always find this is a 2 spatula job. Okay, and now to flip it over, just be brave. Beautiful. I love that dark color in the center because it kind of gives everything a little bit of a smokiness in the finished dish. All right, that's looking very good indeed. Now just some nice chunks here. Okay, so this pork is smelling amazing. And now I just want some nice, sweet little chunks here. Okay, so now it's time to get everything in the wok. And the great thing about this is that usually when you're wok frying, you want to do smaller amounts. But I find with this recipe, it tends to work out with a slightly larger amount because almost everything is cooked. And we're going to get the raw ingredients cooked first up so that they don't stew and become all mushy. You'll see what I mean. Now when the wok's hot, I'm going to add some oil and some garlic and onion. now some prawns. I do love that typical Asian pork and prawn combo. Now spread the prawns out in the pan because we want to get those, as I said, cooking and frying, not stewing. Technique's always very important when you're stir frying. Okay, now toss those prawns a little. Now when those prawns have just turned opaque, meaning they're cooked through, I'm going to add in my vegetables. I just want to stir fry these for a minute or so until those vegetables are still nice and crispy, but just taking that raw edge off them. Some Chinese Shaoxing lime. So now we've got all the ingredients that needed cooking, beautifully stir fried. They're not soggy, they're still nice and crispy. The prawns are just tender. So now I'm going to add in my cooked ingredients. Noodles, my egg and pork, and now for the seasoning, some soy sauce. And here's what gives the Singapore noodles its distinctive character, and that is just a little dash of curry powder. And then to balance out everything, a little sprinkling of sugar. And now we toss. So this isn't a saucy noodle dish. This should really just have enough liquid to coat each strand of noodle, but not be soaking in sauce. Look at all those colors. And you can see just how beautiful and light and separated all those noodles are. Okay, time to serve up. I love having a big mound of these in the center of the table to share with friends. Oh, these noodles always bring me so much joy. Classic Thai stir-fried greens, classic Chinese steamed greens. These are my ultimate Asian greens, Thai pak boong phai dang, and Chinese steamed garlic broccoli. Asian greens. All right, I'm going to run you through two of my favorite ways to prepare Asian greens, and they're totally different, very different kinds of vegetables, different kind of cooking methods, but both very easy and will result in super tasty Asian greens. All right, let's get started on the Chinese version first. Now I'm using Chinese broccoli here. It's also known as Chinese kale, also known as gailan. Now over here I have some Thai pak boong, now also known as morning glory, also known as kangkong, also known as water spinach. This is what this one looks like, really thin kind of leaves. If you grab a hold of this one and the Chinese broccoli and we have a look over here, you can see the main difference here is the leaves and the stems. And if you have a look at the Thai green vegetable here, it's got a hollow stem down the bottom. Now you can give either of the cooking methods I'm going to show you a go with things like bok choy, pak choy, even broccolini. If you can't get Chinese broccoli, don't feel constrained by the types of Asian greens I'm using, because both of these recipes are really worth giving a go. Now let's prepare our Chinese broccoli first of all. Now to get the very best out of this vegetable, I like to go a little extra step with the preparation. It doesn't take that much longer and it results in really beautiful, tender, sweet stems. So have a look at the stem here. Usually it's quite dry on the end here, so I like to just chop that off. And then what you want to do is separate the leafy part from the stem. So cut here, and I generally cut the leaves in half again if they're quite large. And now the stems themselves, I like to take off some of these branches. And then I find that a lot of the time the outside part of this stem is a little bitter and a little tough. So I like to just slide my knife along and kind of peel it. And you can see you get to like a really pale, beautiful, almost white center here. And that is really nice and sweet and lovely. Now there is an easier way to do this. If you would like, you can use a vegetable peeler too. Sometimes with these smaller ones you don't have to, but just give them a couple of goings over with the vegetable peeler. Now before we get to cooking the greens, I'm going to make some garlic oil. So just add some oil into a saucepan. Add in some very finely chopped garlic. Now you want to keep your eye on this garlic. It will burn on you in like a second if you walk away. So don't be checking like Instagram and stuff at this point. Just stick with the garlic, wait for it to sizzle. And now the key here is to take this garlic and the oil off the heat before the garlic chips turn all the way brown, because they will continue cooking as they kind of come off the heat. Now I've got a nice blonde color here. I'm going to pull those off and just strain off the oil. I want to keep that crunchy garlic. I'm just going to drain it on some paper towel. Now I'm going to use the crispy garlic a little bit later on to finish off our dish. First of all, let's make some use of that garlic oil and make a little sauce. So I just need a little bit of oyster sauce first of all, and some soy sauce, some sesame oil, some sugar, a couple of spoonfuls of that garlic oil, and then I want a little bit of water to kind of thin the sauce out a bit. And I've got some boiling here ready for my greens, so I'm going to scoop out some of that. Hot water just helps to dissolve the sugar and get everything mixed up nicely. Okay, all the bits and pieces done. Now it's just time for the greens. Now I want some rapidly boiling water. I'm going to add a dash of salt here. It's all these little additions like the salt in the water, peeling your broccoli stems, just a couple of extra steps that make your home cooking extra special. Now I want my stems to go in first because they're going to take longer. Once they've had about 3 or so minutes, I'm going to throw in my leaves. And now the leaves themselves only take a couple of minutes, so we're looking pretty good here. They're looking nice and dark, slightly wilted. Stems are looking fresh and bright green, so I'm going to take everything out. And I like to spread my leaves and stems out on my plate because that way they all get a bit of sauce and a bit of garlic at the end. Now while they're still nice and warm, you want to drizzle them with that beautiful sauce we made. And sprinkle them with some of that crispy garlic. And there you go. A really simple dish, but with a couple of little extra techniques, really special. All right, let's get on to the Thai version next. Now, preparing the Thai pak boong vegetable is a lot quicker and easier. We just grab a bunch and rip. Just sort of little bite-sized pieces here. And this is one of those vegetables that wilts down into like nothing. So you'll start off with a big mound, but we'll end up with just the right plateful. Now I want quite a bit of garlic here, and one of the things I find interesting about both of these dishes is there's a lot of similar ingredients. So the vegetable, the garlic, the oyster sauce, but the way that you treat them is very different. So the garlic here, I just want to take the skins off. Leave those whole for the minute. I want a couple of chilies. Just take the ends off. And then you could just roughly chop these, but for the right texture in my mind, it needs to be done with a mortar and pestle. So garlic cloves go in. Chilies, I'll just tear up into there. Now I want a light bruising here only. So see what I mean? Very rough. And I'm just gonna pop that right on top of my vegetable. And now this should all happen very quickly and at a very high heat. In fact, if you have traveled in Thailand and you've seen this being made on the streets, you see a huge amount of flame and it's all very exciting. We're not gonna burn my eyebrows off or set the alarm off, so we won't get a huge amount of flame and smoke here, but I do want you to get your wok or your pan as hot as possible. Now I'm waiting for this to kind of get scary hot where we see some smoke. And the whole point is that this vegetable cooks really quickly, and I want to make sure that we get some of that like smoke flavor and some of the charriness happening really quickly. You can see the smoke now. Add in the oil. The whole lot goes in at once. Now quickly add in your sauces, oyster sauce, fish sauce, and a little dash of sugar. Always you should be coughing. That means you're doing it right. Now the trick I think to this dish is that you keep it quite dry in the wok. You'll see there's not a lot of sauce happening in the bottom of the wok here. But what will happen is once you put it onto the plate, veggies kind of keep steaming away and they form a little bit of a pool of sauce in the bottom. You see what I mean? Whew. Yeah, it's going to be a good one. So literally a few seconds and we're ready to go. Alright, so see how we're getting a lot more of that sauce now appearing at the bottom underneath those Thai vegetables. It's just what we want. And my beautiful Chinese vegetables looking so lovely with that beautiful golden garlic on the top. Love that. These are the kinds of dishes that actually make you want to eat your greens. You know, going to the trouble of doing that garlic oil and having that mix of the garlic oil and the sesame is really so special in that dish. And then the crunchy garlic on top. Yum. And now, of course, my favorite Thai vegetable, a nice bit of chili on there. Spicy, garlicky, salty. Perfect. Restaurant style Chinese fried rice. So it's a simple dish, but there are a few little techniques that you need to get it extra special. So we're going to start off with our sauce for the fried rice first, and I just want some soy sauce. Try to go for a Chinese light soy sauce for this one. That will give you just the right amount of saltiness and color that we're looking for. And I want some Chinese Shaoxing wine. Now, this is an optional ingredient for this dish, but I really love the fragrance and aroma it lends to the fried rice. And then I'm also going to add some sugar that's going to help with some sweetness, but it's also going to help us caramelize and get some nice charry bits on our rice. Now, I'm choosing to add some Chinese char siu barbecue pork to my fried rice. I love the kind of sweet, savory porkiness that lends to a Chinese style fried rice. But you could choose to keep this meat-free, or you could just use chicken or shrimp or anything you like. Now, I'm using my homemade Chinese barbecue pork for this one. And if you'd like the recipe, you can head to my YouTube channel, you'll find it there. But you could use store-bought Chinese barbecue pork, or you can even use Chinese sausage as well. That's another really good one to add to this dish. So the key thing for any stir fry is to get everything ready before you start cooking. So I need to get my eggs whisked. Now I've got everything else set up here. I've got my soy sauce mixture, sesame oil, my egg, my garlic, onion, pork, and my salt and pepper. So all set to go. And I want a decent amount of oil in my wok, and I've got some garlic here and it's quite chunky. What I want to do is infuse that oil with the garlic and get it to start turning sort of crispy at the edges. It's all in the detail when it comes to getting this rice absolutely perfect. And this little extra step of cooking that garlic so it's crispy and golden and making that garlic oil at the beginning, this is really going to make a big difference. Now, timing is everything. I don't want to burn my garlic, so I want to get my onions in as soon as I start to see some color. Okay, so at this point, I've got garlic that's beautifully golden and dark brown. I've got onion that's just tender. So now I want to go in with my pork. Okay, now move everything over to the side. We want to make some room for our egg. So just tilt the wok a little bit so that the oil comes down to the bottom, and then in goes the egg. So just push that egg around, swirl the pan a little bit. And this is another key part of getting that restaurant style fried rice, because we don't want a scrambled egg. We actually want an omelette that we're going to then break up into recognizable little pieces. Yep, there we go. Flip that over. Now start to chop that up and incorporate it with everything else. Okay, now for our rice. Now this is some rice that I did make yesterday. I also have a video on how to make the perfect rice for fried rice, so don't miss out on that one over on my YouTube channel as well. And I just want to get this rice starting to get coated in that nice oil, get it making friends with that egg and that pork. And now for that soy sauce mixture. So at this point, your rice grains should be beautifully coated in the oil and the sauce. Shouldn't be anything sticking together or clumping. Oh, and the smell of that Chinese wine just makes this all the more special. And finally, we want just a little bit of salt, some chopped spring onion, and some sesame oil. Now I'm going to turn that heat straight off because the sesame oil will lose its fragrance if you heat it up too much. Oh, and that beautiful sesame toasty smell is just making me really hungry, to be honest. So just adding that sesame oil at the end means that you're getting that really lovely smokiness that you would get from a Chinese restaurant fried rice, even if you don't have a seasoned wok. And then finally, just a little bit of white pepper. And I love the white pepper because to me, pepper in a fried rice should be heard and not seen. So it will add a little bit of peppery bite without too much harsh color or flavor. And that, my friends, is one epic restaurant style Chinese fried rice. Smoky, savory, porky. Doesn't get better than that. I'm so obsessed with those custard tarts that you get at the dim sum restaurant, almost as much as the dumplings, almost. Now I've got a few little tips and tricks and shortcuts for making these at home. So I've got these muffin trays here. They're about medium size, about a 1/3 cup capacity. Now they are non-stick, which is great, but I'm gonna add a little bit of butter as well, just to be sure. Okay, so now we're gonna do the pastry. And the dim sum tarts that you get at the restaurant, pastry is really soft, flaky, melt in your mouth, but we're going to take a little shortcut and get almost the same kind of texture. So I'm going to start off with some store-bought puff pastry, and I want some flour on my bench top here. Peel off any wrapper, and now just cut that sheet in half and then pop the other side on top. So what we've done here is taken the layers of puff pastry and doubled them up, and then roll this up. Okay, now cut this into 4 pieces. Now if you flip these up, you can see we've got these rounds with loads of little layers of pastry there. So take one of those, a little bit more flour on top, push down with your palm, and then just roll it out to about 3 millimeters thick. Now by doing that, you can see here that we've got almost like a roti style sort of circular pattern here, and that's loads of different layers of puff pastry that's going to give us that lovely flaky texture. Okay, now I'm pretty loose and fast with the stuffing of these guys into the muffin tin. I just kind of get them in, push them right down, and any kind of little folds I just press into the side. I like them to look a little bit rustic. Okay, and just continue on. And you know what? The great thing about this is that you're turning a square sheet of pastry into rounds, and there's absolutely no waste. I hate when you have to cut rounds out of square pastry and you've got all those little bits and pieces left over. Okay, so I know we're taking a shortcut here by using store-bought pastry, but this next step, trust me, you cannot take a shortcut on. So these need to go into the fridge for 30 minutes, and that will mean they'll firm up and then they won't shrink so much in the oven. Don't skip this part. So now let's do the filling, and we're going to start off with some eggs, and I'm going to do a mixture of yolks and whole eggs that'll give us a richer custard filling. So just separate those eggs. And then 3 whole eggs. Okay, now some caster sugar and just a little dash of vanilla extract. Okay, just whisk this together first. Now I don't want to incorporate too much air here. I just want to whisk just a couple of minutes till the sugar dissolves a little bit. Now I'm going to add in my milk and some cream. And then just mix this until it all comes together. Now the easiest way to get the filling into your tart case is to get this into a jug first of all. Less mess. And now we just patiently wait for those tart shells to firm up in the fridge. Okay, so these tart shells now are nice and firm, and we're going to go against a traditional baking wisdom here. And I'm not going to blind bake these. I'm going to pour my custard straight into them and get them into the oven. Now don't overfill because this eggy mixture is going to puff up quite a bit. Now I'm going to bake these in a hot oven for 10 minutes, then I'm going to turn the heat down, bake them for another 20 minutes. All the times and temps are on my website, so check out the recipe there. Okay, and look at these beauties. Such a gorgeous color on that pastry. And they're all puffy at the moment, but they're going to start to deflate any second now. Okay, so now time to get them out of the tin. And if you have a look at the bottom here, you can see the round layers of flaky pastry we created by just doing that extra little bit of rolling at the beginning. So good. Okay, so if we cut one of these guys open, you can see we've got just set custard, a little wobbly through the middle, and then that flaky pastry. This is one little joyous pastry package. And now I'm very happy.
Oh, very exciting. Waking up.
Is it good?
Yes.
Tasty. Hey guys, if you want to know whenever I'm releasing something new and delicious, then you should hit that subscribe button and the little bell so that I can let you know every time something new is coming out. Thanks, see you.